Dragonhunters by Garen Whited. Performed by J.S. Arquin. Prologue. The night sky whisked clouds across the moon, spattering the trail with rain and starlight. Thunder muttered in the mountains like an angry old man losing an argument. Wind rattled barren branches in fitful gusts, storm heralds announcing the coming of their master. Within the angle of a dead, tilted tree and the wet rock of the mountainside, darkness swirled. Deeper than the night, darker than ink, it whirled away into the distance, spinning in a direction undefinable. A rider emerged into the rain. The swirl of darkness at his back thinned, diminished, ceased, leaving only mossy wood and wet stone. The horse and rider seemed slightly unreal, colored all in shades of black and gray, little more than shadows of clouds in a world of trees and stone. The sound of their passing was only the occasional click of gravel sent over the edge of the track. The black mare wore no reins, but picked her silent way along the trail. The rider focused his gaze on something visible only to his eyes, hung in the air before him, something he occasionally manipulated with fingertip gestures. A tattered cloak fluttered behind him like a swarm of flying things in the windy gusts. A heavy, straight blade hung from his left side. A lighter, slightly curved blade hung from his right. He cocked his head as though listening and muttered in disgust.
"I said maybe I should give up exploring and just be a peeping Tom. We have the spells for it."
The horse ignored him in favor of something unseen. She cocked her head and laid her ears back, snorting. The smell of ozone was suddenly strong in the air. She shook her mane and it moved unnaturally in the wind. The rider grunted a reply and waved a hand as though sweeping an unseen something aside. A bracelet glinted with an inner light from beneath his sleeve.
"What is it?"
The horse stomped one forefoot in an eerie, soundless movement. She tossed her head, making her mane ripple, strangely independent of the weather. The rider looked puzzled and sniffed the air, waited for a moment, tasted the wind again. Ozone dissipating, yes. Also, ashes, scorched wood, a trace of blood and burnt flesh. A sick, rotting smell like dying earth in a diseased forest, and a cloying, oily odor with a slight taste of sulfur.
"I smell it,"
he agreed, as though in answer to an unasked or unheard question. He paused, as any madman might in conversation with imaginary friends.
"No, I doubt it's anything related. The harmonics are all wrong. Similar, maybe, but not a relative."
The black steed pawed silently at the stony trail and left a shallow gash with one cloven hoof. The rider shifted in his seat, and the horse moved forward again. The rider's gaze swept around, looking through the midnight darkness. He glanced up frequently, as though he expected danger even from such a quarter. They wound their way upward along the barren mountainside, walking slowly, following the broken goat path. Neither seemed mindful of the freshening wind and increasing rain. Clouds closed off the sky completely, plunging the world into darkness absolute, broken only by occasional shards of lightning. Yet the mare kept her steady, silent pace, marching calmly, even disdainfully through the worsening elements, no more bothered by the howl of wind than by a pleasant country road. The rider frowned in the blackness, and the mare stopped without prompting. She turned her head to regard him, and he patted her shoulder wordlessly. The mare tossed her head and planted her hooves as though to stand against a storm. The man dismounted, sliding down one side. His boots made a wet, heavy thud, and thunder growled in the distance. He sniffed the air again like an animal. His tongue flicked out, unnaturally long, tasting the air. He started down the slope beside of the track, ignoring minor hindrances to his mountain climbing, such as dark, cold, and driving rain. He did not know exactly where he was going, but he moved surely, grasping rock and stone like a fly or a spider. Minutes later, he stood on a narrow shelf of stone above a sheer drop. He glanced down as though the darkness was a myth. The tumbling river water far below passed from left to right.
"Yeah, I should learn a flying spell," he muttered. "Someday. Always someday."
He slithered to his left along the ledge, sword scabbards scraping against stone. Moments later, he ducked low to pass under an overhang of rock. The narrow shelf ended beneath the overhang. A bloody hand lay before him. Closer inspection revealed a cleft in the stone, and more of the arm attached to the hand. A whole man lay within the cleft, cased in battered, bloody armor and concealed within the mountainside. The smell of blood was strong on the gentle draft from within the cleft, overwhelming the faint, oily odor. He wormed his way through the narrow gap, his slim frame barely able to scrape between the lips of stone. Beyond the opening, the cave was only slightly larger, but sufficient to kneel partly beside, partly over the supine form. A quick examination revealed a man of considerable size. Even without armor, he would be unable to pass the gap. More immediate were the wounds in his torso and thighs, puncture wounds, as though made by rows of giant teeth. He whistled softly, looking through the holes in the armor and the flesh beneath. Blood oozed out of the armor and flowed toward the probing fingers of the examiner.
"Shut up," he advised his invisible commentator. "I'm not getting involved. Seriously, I'm not. Stop laughing!"